What is going on in the real estate industry? What is happening with these disruptors? What's going to happen with Zillow, Redfin, Compass? We have a lot of things shaking up in this market with so-called disruptors. And I talked to Jay Thompson, and this is part 2 of our interview. There'll be a link at the end of this video or in the description to check out that. But here is my second part of the interview with Jay Thompson when we discuss the future of the real estate industry. Okay, so I am back here with Jay Thompson. We had our talk about Zillow and his history and all that. What I want to focus on now is your thoughts on the future of the real estate industry, specifically as it relates to tech companies. And the reason I say this is, you know, I did a video a couple weeks ago about I did Rex.com, Better.com. Rex Homes, Better.com, and Compass Real Estate. And before I started researching these companies, my main goal of it was that, you know, there's been a lot of burn of cash, okay, with all 3 of these. Well, as I got into it, I did not realize the history of the CEOs from Rex.com or Rex Homes and Better.com. They've got let's call it, they've got a history, okay? And I felt bad because, you know, I don't want to put Robert Refkin in the same category. He's very, you know, straight-laced and seems to be a good guy. And I'm not saying anything bad about the other guys at all, but they've created headlines that Robert Refkin has not. Let's just put it like that, right? But you know, I think that what we're seeing is the days of valuating companies based on the capital are over with, right? You saw that with, you know, Rex. I don't know if Better.com is going to make it through. I think the CEO was personally guaranteed $750 million. What do you think about that?
Yeah, valuations are crazy, and Wall Street is insane at times. I am baffled and mystified frequently. Both inside and outside of real estate, how valuations come up sometimes for these companies. You know, we talked a lot about Zillow in the first part, a big tech company in real estate. Worth, I haven't looked at their stock in a long time. It got hammered, but a lot of stocks are getting hammered. Yeah. But it's a multi-billion-dollar valuation company. Mm-hmm. But Zillow at least has some track record, right? Despite what some people think, they've had profitable quarters, several of them. They've lost a lot of money too, but they at least have a tangible product. You can say, here's the advertising product. Here's Zillow Offers when that was the thing. They had something. Right. There's all these companies that are basically vaporware. You know, they've got nothing, no track record other than maybe the starting founders have some kind of track record with other companies. And they're getting tens, hundreds, thousands of millions of dollars in venture capital, and they go public with crazy valuations. I think, and I'm not a venture capital specialist by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the VCs are starting to wise up a little bit. Yeah. And I get it. I mean, we all wish that we had put money into Uber and Twitter and Facebook when they were starting. Everybody wants that big giant success. But you have to remember, for every Uber and Facebook startup, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of bodies laying out there that weren't successful. Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are kind of starting to realize that. And I think VCs are starting to look they still, you know, they want their unicorns, billion status. I mean, everybody wants that, but I think they're starting to look more deeply at not just the potential of companies that these startups may have, but what can they actually do? Real estate's special to the VC mind because there's so much money involved, right? I mean, it's a multi-trillion-dollar business. I don't have the stats in front of me. Something like $80 billion were paid in commissions to agents last year. And that's just the commission side of it. The real estate in general, you know, 5 million homes sold a year, trillions of dollars of real estate exchanges hands. And then there's all the ancillary and support functions for real estate, title inspections. There's a lot of money made in real estate and a lot of money to be made. And to be frank, it can be a bit of an archaic industry.
Yeah.
In certain places. I mean, when I moved from Seattle down to Texas a couple of years ago, it's the first time I'd bought and sold my own personal house in a long time. And you know what? It sucked. It was a painful experience. Everything about it. We had a great agent in Texas. We had a great agent in Seattle. And thank goodness we had great agents. And I have tons of real estate. I mean, I have hundreds of transactions under my belt as an agent and a broker. So I get how real estate works. And it was still frustrating for me. I can't imagine what buying and selling a house is like for people that have zero real estate experience. It's painful, it's hard, it's expensive, and it sucks. So that makes this industry ripe for disruption. And that's where you start seeing all these Rex homes and people that are coming out with discount models and this and that, and, trying to make it all fit into one app. And it's tough. It's really, really tough.
Right. And I know you can't compare Rex Homes with Compass, right? Compass, they've got full service brokerage. They're actually selling stuff, right? But I did pull the stocks the last 6 months. For Compass Real Estate's down 41%. Zillow was down 35%. Redfin is down 73% in the last 6 months. So do you think that, when I know, look, and like you said, Zillow has been profitable. They are profitable. They are making money. Compass lost for almost 500 million last year. I think that they burned almost 200 million the first quarter. And I know that they have $476 million in the bank. And, I think Robert Refkin was quoted as saying they're going to have to do something different, right? And I say that, they're going to have to, like, in my opinion, they're either going to have to raise commissions or cut services to agents. Well, and I thought that would have been done already, but I mean, I actually, I have I have an agent that I was recruiting that she got a check from Compass to go over there. So this was yesterday. So, my question is, can they survive? I mean, I guess my question is this: if they only have 2.5 quarters of money left, is SoftBank going to give them another, $500 million?
Yeah, that's the question, because you can't spend like that forever, right? The money runs out. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think it's going to be harder and harder and harder for them to keep going back for round after round after round of VC money. I think eventually the VCs are going to go, time out, stop. Something's not working. We can't just keep writing you checks.
Right.
It seems inevitable, but if we'd have talked a year ago or 2 years ago, I probably would have said exactly the same thing. And yet here's Compass yesterday, and I got nothing against Refkin or Compass either. I think he's a brilliant guy. He's probably onto something.
Yeah, I love this how I built this podcast with Guy Raz. I don't know if you listened to that. It was great. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I don't know. I think the VCs are getting tighter. And I think they've got to, because their money is limited in some aspect, right? This stuff doesn't. They're not printing money. That's the government's jobs to print money, right? Shouldn't even have said that. Sorry, but so I think there is at least people are starting to stop and think and pause and go, look, at what point does this cash drain go away? I mentioned in part one that my brokerage was profitable every month of its existence except for month one. But you're talking about a brokerage in a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona that has 30 agents, very small scale, compared to a Compass or a Redfin or any big national franchise. So I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but the way Thompson's Realty stayed profitable was fundamental business 101, right? Spend less and generate more revenue.
Yeah, right. You have to spend less than you make, And that's why I was surprised to hear that they're still, basically cutting checks for agents to come over after that last quarter.
I would have thought that the enticement money, come work for us, here's whatever check. In my broker owner hat, that would have been the first thing I would have lopped off.
Yeah.
That might have helped seed the company with good agents.
Yeah.
But you just can't. You gotta cap that at some point.
So I probably should have researched this before I had you on. But has Redfin ever been profitable?
I don't think so. Now they've only been public for what now, 4 or 5 years, so we don't really know pre-IPO, but probably not. They spend a tremendous amount of time. Redfin's got a great website.
Yeah, I know. Now, is that VC backed money too?
It was, my understanding is it was in the beginning. Redfin's actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, precedes Zillow by a couple of years.
Okay.
They've been around for a long time now. Yeah. And Glenn Kelman is a very interesting guy, their CEO and founder. He is a bit eccentric, as a lot of really smart startup entrepreneur people are. Yeah. But he clearly understands consumers. Yeah. Which is something he shares with Rich Barton of Zillow. Yeah. And with all the co-founders of Zillow, Barton, Frank, and Raskoff, and all those guys, they are extremely tuned in to what the consumer wants and needs. Yeah. But I'd have to go back and look. Redfin may have reported a profitable quarter, but I don't think so. Yeah, they spend a tremendous amount of money on their website. Redfin, also often maligned by many real estate agents, they provide some amazing service to their buyers and sellers. Redfin started doing Matterport tours before Matterport tours were cool. Yeah. I believe every listing on Redfin gets a full-blown Matterport tour. They have a seller side of their, or a client side of their website. So all the documents get loaded into that. They've got world-class technology, not just the consumer-facing website, but behind the scenes.
Right. We are adopting that as well. Obviously not to that level, but there's a couple of solutions for that. One of them is a milestone.ai that we're working with. That is providing that consumer experience on the back end. But let me ask you this. So, what's interesting with Rex Homes is when they closed their doors, and around the same time they hired David Boies. Yeah. And if you've watched the Theranos show, he is the attorney was attorney for Theranos, and probably one of the most famous litigation attorneys when it comes to tech firms in the world. And can you put any idea of why they would hire him at the same time they close their doors?
That was a mystery to me. Rex has been much of a mystery to me. About the only headlines that Rex has grabbed in their history is about either suing somebody or getting sued. Mm-hmm. Countersuits and lawsuits, and they are very litigation happy. I just wrote a couple of weeks ago a piece on Inman about what's the impact of Rex going out of business on the industry, and honestly, I don't think there's any impact. It's a brokerage and it closed. Okay, I hate to say it, but that happens every day. Yeah. There's people like you and me that own independents that sadly don't make it. I'm not saying you won't. Of course you will. But brokerages close down, and a brokerage closing in this industry is not a reason to freak out and think that something bad is happening. They've since I wrote that piece, they came in and they said they're going to start working with big commercial institutional investors to find them rental properties. So they've made a big giant pivot. Will that work? And hiring this, who, for lack of a better term, a celebrity lawyer. I don't know what that guy charges, but he's got to be stupidly expensive.
Probably $3,000 or $4,000 an hour.
Yeah, and Rex wants to sue the National Association of Realtors and Zillow. Yeah. For how those companies and the NAR rules treat their listings.
Well, now is going to be my next question: is how do you think the how do you think them closing the doors, they spearheaded it, which I'm not quite sure what that actually means, but I've read in several articles that they spearheaded the lawsuit investigation from the DOJ into, NAR, Zillow, I think Keller Williams was put into that. But how do you think that impacts that in that case, if you will?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that to me, that whole all these legal things that are happening is super fascinating to me. It's
Yeah.
not really the technology side so much of real estate, but if some of these bigger antitrust cases go the wrong way being against NAR and
Yeah.
the real estate establishment, um, it could fundamentally change how buyers agents are paid,
Yep.
which is not insignificant. I mean, that is a huge, potentially huge change, which would have cascading effects on companies like Zillow and Realtor.com, because who knows what that would, if consumers have to directly pay their buyer's agent rather than the buyer's agent being paid by the selling broker. Um, I don't think that's the disaster for real estate sales that some people have prognosticated, because
I agree, by the way.
I think lenders are going to come in and they're going to go, you know what, we'll just roll your commission payment into your loan,
Yeah.
which they kind of sort of already do anyway.
Yeah.
People are still going to buy and sell homes. People are still going to want their own representation,
Yeah.
but just that's a big, that being how buyer's agents are compensated it is ripe for change. And I have a feeling that these lawsuits are not going to go away. That Rex has hired Daniel, and I can't remember his last name, it starts with a B. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And some of the big class action suits that are starting now, or have started actually a couple of years ago, that are still rolling through the courts, they have very high powered antitrust law firms behind them.
Yeah.
And those guys, they don't mess around. They play ball. They don't take cases that they don't think they can win.
Right.
It doesn't mean they're going to win. And sure, it's all on contingency and this and that, but the numbers are staggering. You could be looking at, most people think they're going to settle rather than go to trial. But so you could be talking settlements in the billions of dollars.
Sure.
They're coming for NAR. I think it's Keller Williams, Remax, Berkshire Hathaway are the ones I can think of that are named in these suits. Plus, a lot of the legal gurus out there think that there's going to be piggyback lawsuits, right? There's a big one in Missouri that was just granted class action status. I think that's the Sitzer case. This other, the Moral case, one of the two just got granted class action. The other one's working on it. But usually when there's a couple of similar class action lawsuits in an industry, those lawyers start banding together. Other lawyers in other states start knowing, it's working in Missouri. I'm over here in Texas. We should jump into this. And the next thing you know, there's 50 lawsuits in 50 states, and they all come under one umbrella, and people just start writing checks for billions of dollars.
And then no agent in the world is even going to think about Zillow or Realtor.com, right? Because the industry will be so disrupted. I mean, I imagine it could close the doors on major companies. And I will say this, like I've thought about this, whatever there's, look, I don't hope that doesn't happen. I think it's probably bad for our industry as a whole. Okay. But with every disaster, there's opportunity. Okay. And I think that what it could do is it will rewrite the way that real estate's done. Okay. There will be people who, hopefully I'd be one of them that will adopt that change, that will embrace the change, that will flourish. And I think that you're going to see a lot of real estate agents, like if all this went down, like we're talking about, like when it goes to trial and all that you're going to see a decrease in the number of agents that is staggering. It could be, we could have 25% of the agents. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that
I agree. I know exactly what you're saying. I get how you're feeling. I don't ever want to see anybody lose their job but there are a lot of real estate agents out there. I mean, I think
and we need to step it up.
Yeah, NAR is up to what, like 1.5 million people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've looked at the data over the years. I know you have. You look at average number of transactions per agent. Okay,
Yeah.
it's not advanced math. Okay,
Yeah.
for one thing, if there's 5,000 home sales in a year, okay, so that's, or 5 million, that's 10 million sides, right? A buy side and a sell side. And there's 1.5 million realtors and probably another million licensees that aren't realtors. So you got 2.5 million licensees, 10 million sides. That's pretty easy math. That's four transactions a year per agent.
Yeah.
Now there are some like yourself and others that do far more than that, but for everybody that does 8 transactions a year, that means mathematically someone's doing 0.
Yeah.
And there's too many agents. Or maybe there's not too many, but there doesn't need to be as many as there are. Yeah, and I don't think it's the end of the industry. In fact, it might even be a good thing for the industry. Some of these drop.
It's scary, but I think you and I are on the same page in that. So, okay, if you're watching this, and I want to hear your thoughts about what do you think about these big companies that have been spending a lot of money? Can they make it through the next 12 months? What do you think about the future of our industry? I want to know. And Jay, I think, I really appreciate your time today. Let everyone know, where can they find you online or in your website, or where can they find you?
Yeah, I do I have nothing to sell anybody. I'm retired, and I'm using air quotes. I don't know if people will see this on video, but I call myself selectively retired. I do some consulting and speaking and writing on the side. I'm on a couple of boards, but so I'm active in the industry. I write on Inman, as you mentioned, almost every week. Email. I love talking to people about this business. I will talk to anybody or answer any questions I can, or just debate, in a good, healthy manner. Email is probably still, I'm old. It's still the best way to get a hold of me is email. Don't call my phone, because I never answer. In fact, it rang twice in this conversation. I just turned it over. Email is Thompson, the name Jay Thompson .home, HOME @gmail.com. That's by far. I'm on Facebook. And my account is wide open, probably overshare too much. But if you want to see me catching fish on the Texas Gulf Coast, go to Facebook, because I live on the Gulf Coast, not too just north of Corpus.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. In fact, I went to high school in San Antonio and then moved to Austin. I'm an Army brat, so I don't really have a place that I'm from. I don't have a hometown, but Austin is my adopted hometown, because right after high school in San Antonio, I moved. I went to A&M at Galveston for 1 semester. I was stupid, because never go to college when you can look out the window and see the beach. Sure. That didn't work out very well for me. But I went to Austin, went to UT for a semester, wound up years later graduating from St. Edward's in Austin. So Austin is my adopted hometown, but now I live in Aransas Pass. I'm sorry, and they'll kill me. The locals will kill me for saying that. I live in Aransas Pass, not Port Aransas, just on the other side of the bay from Port Aransas.
Oh, I know. We go there all the time.
So contact me by email.
Yeah. Thank you so much.